States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Thanks for coming. Happy to have you all. We're going to start with a shade tree hearing that we're going to pass over. So if you have an agenda in front of you, we're going to skip to the PQB Personnel Policies Joint Meeting with the PQB regarding the rewriting of the personnel bylaws. It's in our agenda packet, which was unopenable, was the bylaws that the PQB has been working diligently at revising and fixing. As we know, one of the things that we were talking about was changing the disability part, and that's not something that we are going to talk about tonight because we're still in the process of figuring out what our options are. But as a member of the board, one of the things I wanted to do was to submit the pieces to the Board of Selectmen that were easy fixes. Words like we, the basic things that needed to be fixed and could be moved on quickly without much conversation. However, we didn't have a chance to read them, or you all didn't have a chance to read them because they weren't in the packet. So hopefully by the next meeting, Heather, if you could put that on the agenda again, and then those pieces will go out to the board to review. The parts that were taken out are crossed off, but because we don't have a color copier, they're just, the wording looks a little differently, like a lighter black, so you can, it's pretty easy to read the difference between what we want to change and...
If you get the Word document, the changes are in gray.
Okay. So we'll make sure that we get that to the board to review before the next meeting. That way we can move forward on the easy parts.
Can we get it soon?
Yeah, I can get copies tonight.
Or just electronically send it?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So that we have a couple weeks to look at it
Yep.
again. But the big parts, the vacation time and the disability, we're still working on. So that is obviously going to be a much longer conversation than the parts that we want to review and approve first.
So we're going to approve it piecemeal as we go along to make it easier?
Yeah, I think in consultation with Liz, I think that's the best way. And then, we'll bring we're really sort of trying to figure out earned versus accrued on vacation time. And Jim Palermo's done a lot of work talking to the neighboring towns to see how they did it. As far as the self-insurance, right now we're averaging about $9,300 a year. That's over 3 fiscal years, so it's gone from $838 in fiscal year 13, $17,700 in fiscal year 14, and $9,591 in fiscal year 15. If we get a policy that's similar, a 26-week type policy, we're talking in the neighborhood of $88,000 a year. So I think it's sort of a no-brainer that we stay self-insured. Of course, keep our fingers crossed because things can happen. But I think right now, we want to talk over that again. We have Ed Batchelder.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be hopefully coming to our meeting on Thursday just to make sure I didn't miss anything here. And
assuming if we're self-insured, we have a cap where we have a insurance policy that takes over at a certain level?
Well, that's something we need to talk about, yeah. That's a very good point, yeah. Some type of,
What do you call it, yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what we used to call it in the old days, balloon type thing, where you cover that, so. Okay, and
Catastrophic
hopefully
loss policy, I think.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. So we also have a joint meeting with the Historical Commission. They're not here yet. Is that true, Heather? Can they come back? Or are they not coming? I'll come back to it. Okay. For those of you who don't know, Heather can't talk, so we're going to skip the town administrator report tonight. Select board reports. Does anybody have any reports? The school committee's meeting right now, so I'm not there. I can't tell you what's happening. Anybody else?
Yeah, so is the finance. So we need to talk about that. I mean, I'd like to get involved with one, but I can't make this one, so it makes no sense for me to be a liaison.
Okay. So we can have that conversation. Departments, boards, and committees, anybody have anything they would like to talk about right now? No. Open time for the public. Oh, wow.
You want it first.
Hold on. Go ahead, Mr. Boyle. Yeah.
Let Brian go first.
No,
Are you gonna be brief?
It'll be a few minutes, yeah.
All right, Ryan, go ahead.
It's come to my attention now, we're down to a 4-member board on the ZBA, and typically we've always had an alternate. I don't want to say typically, in the years past, we've had an alternate from the select board. It's like an alternate to an alternate. Right now, we're actively seeking applicants for two applicants, one for a full position, and one would be
It's a backup,
an
alternate.
right, an alternate, and then we'd like to make sure that we have coverage. Someone.
So you need a liaison from us.
Yeah,
in
just
case
that
of emergency.
We've been down. You've been there with me before. It was me and.
Sign me up, Ryan. If you need
You're in?
yeah.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to do that, or we just take Dr. McDougall's? We need a motion. I would accept a motion to appoint Dr. McDougall as the alternate member to the board, to the zoning board, liaison from the select board to the zoning board of appeals.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
One other thing, we had a hearing last night in regards to 11 Nicole Circle with this drainage pipe issue that seems has been bounced all around your board, planning board, and it landed on us. I feel that there's potentially some information that I might be missing. I know we spoke about there was a letter. I never got the final draft of the letter. I'd like to be able to obtain that. I've got a packet of information from the planning board from John Furman. Just basically anything that you have. We have it continued till December 1st at 7 o'clock, and we continued it from last night. So I'd like to try and get any and all, anything you have that are for the board by next Tuesday, so I can get it out so our board can review it. There's a packet I had from the planning board. It had color copies and some other stuff. I didn't make 40 copies for the board, so we reviewed some of it last night. If I could get any of that stuff electronically would be the easiest way possible.
I think the only thing we have is the letter.
Okay, no other correspondence. Now, was there an executive session in regards to that? And how,
What's that?
was there an executive session with them?
Yes.
Oh, yes,
Yes, we did. Yes.
There was?
Mm-hmm.
How does that, I don't know, I'm asking the question. Am I able to obtain and review that, or is that?
I don't know the answer. I'm looking to Heather. I'm trying to read her
Yeah.
lips right now.
If you go see Heather.
Okay, because I think we're just, right, wrong, or indifferent, the way it's panning out from what I've looked at. I mean, there's probably potentially a lawsuit that I see coming towards the town's way and issues with the town, and I'm trying to obviously make the best decision that we can as a board that makes sense, but also be fiscally responsible about it, since the planning board has spent money with their attorney to having it reviewed.
So why don't we make sure that he gets whatever other information there is by Tuesday, and then if you have other questions after.
Tuesday or
that-
sooner, just
Or
so,
sooner, okay.
yeah, so I can get it up, give me a day to get
It
it up.
seems to be that if you're a town board, you should have, at least talk to the chair of the select board regarding the executive meeting, so the chair can convey to you what occurred. I think that's important for the town.
And is that okay for me to do, if that
I
was
think
happening
so.
in executive session?
Yeah, you gotta be
Okay,
careful
so-
what you say.
Yeah, you got, that's not an open blanket.
Right, yeah.
You know, that is not an open blanket.
Tell them-
Unless you want the ZBA to totally be neutral and just make a decision upon.
They are supposed to be neutral.
Right. So that's the other way to look at it.
Well, I'm just saying,
Well-
Heather can make a judgment call what they can see. But what I'm talking about, you're saying all executive sessions, that's not so.
No, I'm only.
No, no,
Just
pertaining-
about, just pertaining to
only-
this
Right.
issue.
All I care about is 11 Nicole Circle
Right.
right now.
Okay.
Did you happen to see the videos of the meetings where we discussed it and they came in? That might be helpful.
Yeah, sometimes I watch, sometimes I get put to sleep.
I'll be honest with you, John, the planning board, all it was more direction for the planning board to take. That was the discussion.
Right, and John Furman had given me that packet, which I went through, and there's a lot of good information, but like, I didn't feel comfortable doing anything last night, because I know there's pieces to the puzzle that were missing, and I didn't want to do anything, so that's why I'm here tonight, to reach out to you guys, that if there is anything in the executive session, if I need to speak with you, it probably makes sense if I could get it, I could review it, and sure, I'm gonna ask some questions, then we can have some dialogue prior to December 1st. That's why I've given myself a couple weeks,
So
especially.
Ryan, again, going back to the thought I had was, is it better, and this is a legal question, for you not to know the opinion of the select board, because we're political, we're trying to do what we politically think is correct for the town, versus where the ZBA is supposed to just look at the bylaw and then make a determination based on the bylaw, which allows you to be sort of independent in thought and process.
It's kind of a tough one, as we all know, because they're not seeking a variance and they're not seeking a special permit. I mean, to me,
So how did it get to you if they're not seeking a variance then?
They shouldn't have come to us.
that was the last, well, once you get the building permit and if it's denied, you have the right to go to the zoning board and appeal, but that's typically trying to put an addition on, you don't have the setback. I mean, the fact that everything I saw that you guys, select board as a whole, would look at if they paid to move the pipe and paid the legal fees to move the easement. I mean, I said to her, I said, in my lifetime, I've never seen anything like that happen with a municipality. That's an easement with a municipality. I said, to me, it's a no-brainer, but to her, she just keeps beating the drum that it's never been conveyed.
It's never been recorded.
Recorded to
It's
her.
always been a known factor that's there. The whole construction project was based around that. And there's no other outlet. And we tried to work with her, saying, yes, we know it wasn't conveyed, not conveyed, but recorded. But it was known by all parties and recorded in everybody's deed that this legal easement for the town.
Right.
Does it need to be recorded correctly then? Do we need to invest time and energy?
To have it done correctly, it should have been recorded by the attorneys, as far as I'm concerned, right off the bat.
Basically,
But does it happen a lot? It happens all the time. I think Heather has researched that, to find that out. It happens quite a bit.
Well, the information that they presented last night was very credible. And this is the last step in their process. And the board felt that whether they spend money or you guys come up with the money to remedy the situation, there's going to be a suit if it's not satisfactorily said or her attorney was there. And so this is their last try. And then we felt we needed to, do you spend $6,000 or do you spend 20? Because then you're gonna have to pay legal fees.
Right, but anyone can sue you for anything, as you know. So I think from my opinion, I think the ZBA has to make their own decision of what they think is the best decision, regardless. Just looking at the zoning bylaws, is there wiggle room to move the pipe? I have no idea.
Well, we determined they can move the pipe.
you've given her an option. That's what I said.
It's all written down, it's all
You've given
documented.
her options. That's why I said, I don't know.
For us to pay to move the pipe, I don't think that's happening.
No, that's not the problem. The problem, I think, is, and tell me if I'm wrong, there were some legal fees and survey costs and stuff like that the planning board wanted added to it, which was $6,000 or $7,000 on top of it.
$7,500, but it was a retainer, so
Yeah.
it would go back, whatever. And that's what I said. Like I said, I'm thinking, it makes sense to do it that way. The fact that the town, it wasn't registered, but I interpret the drawings that were registered before construction, that proposed drainage easement, that is there, that has always been there. It's like a building lot. It's not a building lot. It's a piece of land that is never to be touched. And the fact that because there was an issue and the town would work with the homeowner to make this happen. I mean, if it was registered.
That was our intent, to work
right,
with
if
them.
it was registered, it's.
She would have nothing.
Right, exactly. there would be absolutely nothing.
The attorney did say, even though it's not officially registered, by practice, it was, it's there.
Well, wasn't there a letter supposed to be written by Jacobic to their attorney?
Yeah.
I've never seen that letter.
It was, and
And that is
Heather
what you
had
need.
some comments, and
Okay.
it's a draft, but I never saw the final one that was sent, so, I understand where you're coming from on what decision, and you have a very valid point, so it may make sense not to, but I definitely want to see the letter from the planning board, just because the two boards work hand in hand.
So why don't we get that to you this week, and you look at it, and then if you have more questions, you and I can talk, either with Heather or without Heather, we can, get on the
Okay.
same page, or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Move forward from there.
it's a sensitive,
John, I think the big thing was it was fine and everything we agreed to until the cost for retainage at $7,500, which was for legal fees and redesigning an as-built and stuff like that. I think that was added to it, and she didn't anticipate those costs, and she wasn't at all pleased about it. But she left the room that meeting with the understanding that we're going to move forward, but then fell apart afterwards. from what I
The other
understand.
thing is that she also felt that this has been going on for 11 months. So she's jumped through all the hoops in terms of going to the respective boards that she's been told to do what she needs to do. And then when she came to us last night and we said, we really don't have the authority to make a ruling on this. There's no applicable zoning bylaw. And so we decided we needed to at least come to you and say, this is how the board felt, and this is they were unable to make a determination, and we need that piece of information, and there is one. Because she hasn't heard from anyone. Her attorney was there, and he hasn't received any correspondence from either the town attorney or from the select board, further to when they first spoke to you.
What happened to that letter that,
It got sent out.
it did get sent? Right after I read it? Because that was a while ago, so I'm a little confused as to why she hasn't heard from anyone, because that letter got,
It was within a day or so. She needs to contact her attorney.
It was sent where?
it was sent within a day or two of the conversation.
like a week or two ago.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot.
That was a while ago.
So people will say that, but you have to confirm that.
Right, that letter was sent at least a month ago,
Longer than that.
a couple weeks.
But we can follow up to make sure.
Yeah, but there
phone
was a
call from
letter
our
and it was
office
sent.
over To make sure they received it or resend it to their attorney.
So it's not registered by chance or anything?
No, I don't.
The attorney
We didn't
sent
send
it,
anything.
so let's figure out when that was sent and get a copy, because I know that there was something sent. It wasn't like anyone here dropped the ball on it.
As you guys remember, during September,
Mm-hmm.
Ryan sent an email to Heather on October 20th about the legal, whatever response from the attorney. And then from that day to when we met, we hadn't heard anything
Yeah,
else.
it was definitely sent, so let's figure out when, get a copy of it, and see if we can fill in some
Oh, the other
Do
details.
you want a copy of the letter, Ryan?
Yeah,
Heather
Heather-
just said she had it.
We got an email from the planning board yesterday, which came to the ZBA general email box. So I sent it to Ryan right away. And in it, I don't know who sent it, just says planning board, and told us that not to take any action on that hearing, which we didn't have enough reason, but that's what their suggestion or advice to us wasn't. So there was too many external,
Right,
Why would he do that?
I don't know.
I don't know who sent it. It wasn't identified by any.
How was it, you sure it was sent by a planning board then?
Well, it addressed it to Ryan, and then it talked about the case. It talked about the,
You have to, why doesn't Ryan talk to the chair of the planning board and ask him why that
who
was
is
sent?
the chair now?
It was John, who took over for John as chair?
We don't know.
Who's the clerk, or the vice?
John was doing, I had talked to John right towards the tail end of all of this, so.
So why did, Ryan, talk to the chair to verify that that letter was actually sent from them, and and actually ask them why they're saying it there, get an understanding. You have a copy of the letter, and then you can talk to Liz, and hopefully those 3 points can actually bring you around to an understanding what you should do. Okay? I'm not telling you what you should do, because you need to act as an independent.
I will do that.
But it'll help you decide what you should do.
Sir, can you email me the contact information for the chair of the planning board?
As of, I think tomorrow night's John's last night, and I think there's a new one gonna be appointed tomorrow night.
I'm surprised,
Oh, he's
if
a-
John is still there, then I don't know why he didn't identify, because he has our email addresses.
But that's what I mean, that's what I would verify that it actually came from the planning board, not
I
from
mean, I
somebody
made
else.
copies for everybody last time, but we did not determine our action based on that.
But sometimes you never,
Direction.
you never know where a piece of email is coming from, so you just want to maybe confirm with a voice, with a telephone call, or actually show up at the planning board tomorrow night. Sorry.
Well, the main point is that we
3 nights
really
in a
want
row?
I'm sorry, dude.
to tell you.
The burdens.
December 1st.
Yes, sir.
No, I'll reach out to him. I'll find out if it's technically still John till tomorrow, or, I thought he was done 2 weeks
Me too,
ago.
me too. I mean, he sent me an email, and I.
He talked to me yesterday and said Wednesday's his last day, this coming Wednesday.
Alright, yeah, I'm good, you good?
No, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our chairman had to leave for an emergency, and I'm taking over. I made Colley the vice chair. Jim?
Yeah, I noticed on the agenda tonight, the last part of it, you still have must be still some contract talk going on with Charter or Comcast, is that right? There's something on the last part of the agenda tonight. But anyway, is that, what I wanted to know a little bit is that if that contract is totally finalized or not. I guess I was at a couple of meetings and I didn't think it was, but.
From what I understand, and anybody here want to jump in, they're assuming, they're buying Charter out, and they're assuming the existing contract intact until it is renewed at the renewal date.
Yeah. Well, anyway, the question I have is there's been no question that in this transition period with these new cable boxes going on, there's been a large amount of activity in Southampton regarding the boxes being installed properly. As you've probably seen and noticed, that there's been a large number of tri-wire trucks in Southampton everywhere. No matter where you go, you see one, sometimes you see two together. They're a subcontractor for Charter. They have been around for quite a while. I think they're exclusively to the interior and from the road to the house company that handles this. So Charter, I guess from what I understand, handles the main lines in the street. You see their trucks around, boom trucks and stuff like that. Similar to like Western Mass Electric, you see their yellow trucks around. But anyway, to the whole drift of this is that I did stop and saw Heather. She gave me the contract. I took a look at it for 15 minutes. It's probably a well-written contract to a degree, but and of course, in parts of contract that you negotiate with, you don't see all that negotiation. So the only thing that's said in there that Charter and their agents, so I assume that Tri-Wire is an agent to them, working on a subcontract basis. But my thought here tonight is to ask this board, for the safety of elderly people, the children, and the residents of this town, if this Tri-Wire company has a certain degree of well, I'm not saying trust, but the same degree of background checks as possibly Charter does. I was told it doesn't, so that's part of my story. But the thing of it is that if Tri-Wire is running around all these houses between here and Easthampton on a constant basis with no background checks to the best part or the limit of what a background check can be, it certainly should be on this board to look into that, because they are subcontract, I don't believe they have to live to the charter standards. So I think that has to be looked at and dealt with somehow to protect the residents of this town. It's a large matter. I'm not gonna get into anything that I'm here for tonight, but if you can get me in an executive session to talk, I'll tell you the story.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Jim, because I think it is a very important thing you brought up. We require all our personnel here in town to be Cory checked. We require our teachers and staff at the school to be Cory checked. And a lot of our contractors that work, I know for the highway department, we made sure there was a Cory check on them. Now, one thing I'll ask Heather to do is call them tomorrow and verify that. There's another contractor they have, it's called White Cable. There's another one that's out there. So I'll ask her to check on all their subcontractors.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but I know Tri-Wire has been around for a long time, because initially they did the new installations. They laid the wires from the new streets into the houses, and they hooked up, and that was part of their job. And very seldom now do you see any Charter or Comcast trucks around at all. There is a few that I've seen around in town vans, but to the extent they are the white pickup trucks with the cap with the ladders. But I think it's important, and really important, that that's looked into and solved with the best background checking check. Just not a check to say you got a driver's license. And
No, it's a little more involved than that.
yeah, I think so, because they're in people's houses, and especially in the last 2 to 8 weeks, there's been like a tsunami of these people around. These cable boxes aren't coming in, so an average individual can hook them up. I mean, everybody here's probably got them. If you're lucky to make it work, that's good.
But are you concerned about specific incidences that someone's at risk of harm that you need to tell us an executive, or is that?
Well, no.
Okay.
No. What I'm saying is that I have a personal story, but I can't say it here.
Okay.
That's pretty much what.
But you don't know of any threat to an elder or someone?
No,
Okay.
no,
All right.
absolutely not. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
But I'm saying that I think that there's enough people, enough activity going around. I mean, a lot of activity. I mean, there's trucks everywhere all day long in town, even later in the evening, to get these boxes up and running.
Well, I know they make their appointments till 9 o'clock at night, so.
What's
They
that?
make appointments till 9 o'clock at night.
Well, that's true. So what I'm saying is that these boxes that are being installed, if you don't have the box, you don't get television. It's that simple. You don't get charter. So.
But there is a way around that.
Well, there possibly is. There's usually ways around it, but the average individual gets that box, especially an elderly person, tries to get that and get it activated and get everything working, is a different story. But like I say, Heather knows a little of the story, but at the same token, if she has a chance to look into that, it would be.
Well, I'm gonna ask Heather tonight, looking at tomorrow, the next day, whatever is convenient. But on the other note, that I know you talked about executive session. If there's a concern on your part, I would recommend going over and talk to the lieutenant or the police chief and just tell them your concerns. It's between you and them. Here, it's a different story. So that's what I would suggest you to do. So at least there's a report, and
That's already been done.
Okay, then fine.
So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nilda?
I just wanted to add, I had made an appointment with Charter, and the Charter truck was not on my property, so usually when you make good appointments, the reps will say, a truck with this lettering or this, and somebody, and this person, when they knocked at the door, I saw the truck by my mailbox, and when he came to the door, that's when I found out that he was from Charter, but I had no visual.
Do you have an ID or anything?
No. I think that might be a way to say to the homeowner, we have these trucks that are different, they're not Charter, they're subcontractors, so that people feel more comfortable in terms of who's coming into their home.
No, I think it's a very valid point you and Jim brought up, because they are using utilities, local utilities, as a way of identifying themselves. and they, you know, they either call a home or stuff like that, but you will listen to the rash of information coming from various police departments. They let them know that they're a local utility and they're not even involved with them. They want to get in your door, take a look what's going on. But it's a good point, and we're going to talk to them, and we'll also talk to the police department. Yeah?
Adding on to this as well, I saw them in town several times. These are often out-of-state plates.
Right.
North Carolina, it does not look right. It raised a red flag for me. And I saw I'm very happy it came up because it was concerning. Right? Older trucks, they did not look.
Yeah, they're all self-contractors.
Yep.
We'll look into that, and Heather will get
When we
back.
do the contract over, I think one of the things should be that any and all contractors and subcontractors to the cable company have to produce a picture ID.
I think it's a good
That
idea.
has to be in the
If it's not
contract.
already in there. But they should be identified. Okay, anybody here, anybody else for open time? You're scheduled?
Well, I think Heather, am I on in any way or no? What time?
Okay, next point of business here, I got a note from, I'm assuming it's from Randall and Heather in regards to the fuel tanks. They looked into renting the tanks. They want $32 a day for a 3,000 gallon tank. That's the only size tank they could get, Heather? Yes, no? Okay. Because I was hoping they could find a 500 gallon tank. 100 gallon? Well, you got the 125s you can put in the back of a pickup truck.
The consultant's gonna keep looking.
Okay, good. So that's just for information.
Just, yeah.
How big is the England tank?
The existing one is 4.
So this
But
is
we don't need
pretty close to
we only
that.
need a 500, because a 4,000 gallon diesel tank is still functioning. It's a 500 gallon tank that just has to be filled up more frequently, but it gives us the ability to buy wholesale and tax-free, and also to have them when we need it. So if they could keep looking for something like a 500 gallon tank, that would be suitable. This was just up, is this budgetary item 4.2, is this something that's new or what's that?
Continued from last week.
Last week, well, I wasn't here last week, so why don't we take a minute to review it? Sure.
Just this part. Okay. So Heather spent hours on the phone with Rick from DLS and time with Vicki and Donna to review the revenue projections and expenses for FY16. DLS has asked that we reconstruct the way that we prepare our revenue reports to include certain sections. First, we can take a look at revenue predictions. The first section is the property tax levy section, which is comprised of the 1 prior year tax levy, 2.5% increase, 3 new growth, and 4 exclusion debt. This is the debt we incurred after obtaining votes from town for debt exclusions. The exclusion debt will be balanced out in the expenses sheet as debt excluded, in quotations. The second section is the contents of the cherry sheet broken into educational aid and non-educational aid. Some of these amounts, school lunch, school choice receiving tuition, and public libraries, are amounts that we account for going in and coming out under the assessment sheet under cherry sheet offsets. We're asked to include these in both the revenue and expense sheets by DLS. The third section is local receipts revenue. This includes all of our excise taxes, departmental receipts, meals taxes, etc. The fourth section is other available funds. This includes any money from other accounts that we use to put towards the budget. It varies year to year, but in general there are certain funds we traditionally utilize, such as ambulance special revenue fund, WPAT special revenue fund, water enterprise fund, indirect costs, and transfer station enterprise funds, indirect costs. The last section is total revenue, our most current prediction. Please note this is only a prediction. Kept the cherry sheet numbers the same as FY15 and made some assumptions and predictions on revenues from local receipts for FY16, and the amount is $15,597,962. This number is higher than last week as we added in additional sources of revenue not originally considered after consultation with DLS. Next is assessments and offsets. This is a new section that we did not include all in one piece last week. In the top section, we have the assessments provided by the FY15 cherry sheet. These numbers are often consistent over the years, and we've used the same numbers for FY16, but things can always change. In the second section, there are two parts: cherry sheet offsets and other amounts to be raised. Cherry sheet offsets are the school choice, school lunch, and public library allocations that were written in on the revenue side. This part allows them to be taken back out to net $0. In the last piece, other amounts to be raised, there are overlay reserves and deficit. Overlay reserves has consistently been at $70,000 over the past few years, so for the time being, this is what we've used. This amount is used to offset the collection of taxes minus the amount that is used for abatement claims. Deficit is currently 0, but it would have a number in the event we predicted having a past year deficit in something like snow and ice to carry forward. The last page is total proposed expenses for FY16. The first column of figures is the current FY15 budget as originally granted. The second part of the page to the right are two budgets, level funded and variables, some fixed increased costs, and level service schools. And FY15 budget minus 5% with variables, same as before, and adding level funding for some services such as legal fees. The school number has been corrected as before Excel inflated it. The total for the level funded budget would be $15,373,484, which would still allow us around $224,000 to play with to balance any changes in the school budgets, adjust for lower cherry sheets, or use as needed. In the FY15 minus 5% budget, the total is $15,038,661, leaving around $559,000 to play with. At this time, this is still an estimate and is being utilized only as a tool to begin the budget process. Heather would like to ask the board to request an amendment from last week's vote based on the favorable change of the numbers to request all departments to present two budgets, level funded and FY15 minus 5%. This will allow the finance team to have some leeway over the upcoming months as numbers become firm by the schools and by the state government to have some wiggle room. Are there any suggestions for rules for budgeting?
Heather, you just give me a yes or no on this. And on the $70,000 on the overlay fund, which is used by the assessors to offset changes that might happen in individual taxes, am I right? Second is that number been, what has that number been on average over the last 5 years? Could we look into that and say whether we're high, low, or, and because to tie up that kind of money, we should have an average to base it on. Okay, that's my insight. What's the pleasure of the board about it?
I've got a question here. We're predicting a balance remaining, which is great, but this doesn't, as far as I can see, this doesn't take into account either of the stabilization accounts, right? Funding them. So I think we need to keep that in the back of our head, that we need to put money in those accounts, and maybe we should put a line item in here just to throw some money in it, so that keeps it on our.
I mean, I think it's a good point you brought up, and would you consider a minimum of so much money based on what's left over?
I guess it depends on what we do with our free cash this year. We had a discussion last week, and we had kind of various people coming up with different ideas, but as a minimum, if we could put $100,000 in each account each year, because we're going to deplete it. A cruiser a year is $35,000, right there, that's a third of it, and fire truck and highway department. So we could have a couple of vehicles a year. So I think a minimum of 100,000. More would be fine with me, but as a base, I think 100.
On each one?
Each one, yeah.
Dave, what you think?
Some of the conversation last week was that there was a $70,000 deficit this year that we had to account for. Is that true? So we're talking about where is that? That's what's on our plate right now. So we have a $70,000 deficit, and I think we have to address that first. And some of the discussion was to shut off the streetlights, to cut certain budgets, and we have to sort of to finish that discussion about meeting this year's needs. To refund the stabilization, obviously for that you need your rainy day funds. It's been pouring out for the past 4 years, and we've depleted. There's two funds. One is for capital expenditures, and one is which requires a vote, and there's another one for operational, and the operational one is new. And that's one that we've been using money to sort of, to get things through this rainy day period. So, yeah, I'm in favor of financing those two funds, and it should be a percentage of whatever's left over, maybe free cash every year. Should be, say, 30% of free cash should go into those two funds. But I think there's that 70,000 we have to deal with right now. And once we take care of FY15, then we can look at FY16 and see what's left in there.
Dave, as far as the 70,000, how is that going to be handled?
Don't know. We were discussing whether we should have the departments go back and cut some from the budgets as of right now, going forward, and make up that difference, or part of that difference, or we should take it from the free cash that's being projected, where Vicky said roughly 350. So we kind of have different opinions on whether we need to bite the bullet or we're going to keep using free cash. Can I ask a question on the stabilization? The operational, doesn't that also need the same vote as the stabilization?
It needs less, though.
No, same thing there.
I thought it was less because that's why we set it up, because it was.
9/10 is it, or 2/3?
Well, I'm just saying that there was a discussion why we set up a second one, because one of them needed 9/10 or some higher number than the other. I'm just saying that was the discussion that was had.
Yeah, I thought one was going to
We
use.
should verify that because
One was a little harder to get money out.
there were dedicated funds, one for operational only, and the other one was capital, where they both had a 2/3 vote to move them out.
But I just thought there was, we
Okay.
set up this other one.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
No, I'm just telling you, the reasoning, the thought was that we set up this other one, because DOR said, you can have as many as you want. And we set up this other one because it would make it easier to move funds in and out of versus the other one, which is a little more difficult. But maybe I'm misremembering the vote.
I'm told all stabilization funds require the same vote.
I can't agree with you, but.
Either way, we all agree that the funds are important, we need to fund them, and how we do it is a question, yeah.
But it's still a rainy day.
Both of them are.
A capital
Well, no, what I was gonna say
stabilization is
is-
not a rainy day fund.
No. What I'm saying is, it's still pouring out, is what I'm trying to say.
You gonna make it?
Got water?
You want this? Pass it to us, not open.
That's
But my point is that it's still, they're talking about more budget cuts. They're talking about, with the new governor coming in and cutting $320 million. So we, in my opinion, we have to really look at, to be honest with you, I wish we could fund everything that we needed to fund for this town without any outside aid at all. Because then we'd have more control over what happens. No outside state aid.
But that's not the case, Dave.
I know. But I think it's still raining out. And we still need to be able to keep moving forward and provide basic services. And I had this discussion with Heather. So what is the goal of the board? It's a philosophical discussion. Is the goal of the board to have a balanced budget? That's easy. Give me a pen and let's just do some numbers and we got a balanced budget. Is it the role of the board to provide the services that are necessary to protect the lives of the citizens of the town? That's different, in my opinion. Because then you really have to make hard decisions and advocate for certain things, as I tried to explain the difference between a BLS service and an ACLS service. ACLS service is going to save more lives in town. So our role should be to advocate for what is important for the town, to protect the lives of the citizens of the town, and our role should not be just to balance the budget, and which always comes down to just cut.
I do both, I think.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Dave, but what it comes down to reality is, we can't print the money,
I know we can't.
okay? And so we have to make the hard choices and pick what's most advantageous for the town of Southampton. And over the years, we were able to use the enterprise funds that had some money in it to fill a gap, but it became a tool where we had little or no money left. And that recurring expense was being met by a one-time expense. And it couldn't carry it through for multiple years, and that's where we are now. Can't use that money to fund these projects at these levels anymore. We just can't.
We need more revenue.
We need more revenue, and according to the plan that Heather has here, I think there is some, not a lot of light, but there is a little more light in the end of the tunnel on the way we can do our budget and how we can arrange, and look at various other options for funding. Okay? Based on what everybody's said, I mean, Heather's asked us to, Heather has asked us to endorse her suggestion here about the direction of the planning for the budget. But my also thing that John brought up, which I think is very important, in the meantime, you can't lose sight of the enterprise plan. They have to be considered as part of your support system, and they need to be funded so we can do things that we do not have money for, that we can eventually have money. I got a little note here about Mrs. Valunas. You have an email you sent, and you want to talk about ways that we can cut.
Well, that was one of the reasons I'm here. Tammy Valunas, 298 College Highway. At the last meeting, it was asked, how would you go about doing some cutting and things like that. And I know Liz had put out on Facebook, the Board of Selectmen's page, that they were asking for constructive solutions. And so I'm just curious, did you get many in? Am I like the only one? You had two emails.
That's the sad part, you know. People are often complaining about not having enough money, but people aren't coming forward to offer suggestions and better ways to do things.
Okay.
So we have to make decisions.
My concern is, I was talking to Heather, I mean, to Liz, is that, you know, I'll take credit for, if you want to say it's mismanagement from the select board. If you want to lay that on at our feet, that's fine. I know that's not true. My concern is that as you rearrange the deck chairs on the boat that's got a large hole in its hull, that you're not really addressing what's really needed, which is an increased revenue for the town. So we can go through this whole budgetary process and feel good about it, and we got a process in place, but it's not going to change the bottom line. It's not enough revenue for the town. We'll go another year behind the 8 ball, and so it's another delay where the quality of life and services in this town go down, okay? Because you're not paying for them, and you'll be in the same position as we are next year, next December, going into the budgetary cycle, because the real root of the problem, there's not enough funding to provide the services for the town, no matter how you arrange the deck chairs. And that's my opinion. And I'm glad to hear that you have an idea and stuff, but the bottom line is we need more money.
Okay, with that being said, has Southampton even looked into the solar panels? You see them going up everywhere.
We have looked at the solar panels. When I was working in the department, we looked at them in several different areas. We even got a grant to research looking at them. And for instance, the one that we were looking for, we had to take the landfill and cut back about 4 more acres of tree line all the way around the landfill in order to get 5 workable acres. Okay, that wasn't feasible. That would just look like, you know, a slash and burn. We looked at putting them on this building here. Okay, it was ideal, but we didn't get any takers that wanted to put them on the roof. Okay, opposed that. Those are 2 projects that I know of. Okay.
I tried to get a cell tower put on town land property, but that was shut down in 2006 or 2007.
Okay, shut down in 2007, it's 2014 now. There's new people that have moved into town. There's younger have moved in, olders have passed on. There's new blood in town. Can we approach these again at another meeting?
Usually the cell phone companies approach us. They had a down spot, an area on Route 10 where they were dropping out signal. And I forget where the tower ended up, but it wasn't on town property. So there's no need, that need was taken care of.
The solar, though, is a perfect example of what Tammy's saying, because the technology is so far advanced, everybody's doing it all over the place, and people pay to come in and do it, and we get reverse metering and get money. So I think that's a great project to look into.
I was hoping that it was gonna come up when they were redoing the roof on the North School, because then that would cover some of the expense that the North School has, I would have assumed.
But they can still do that.
Well, sometimes though, when you look at the structures, and I'm just a doctor, I'm not a carpenter, but I know it's a single membrane on top of that roof. Ed can lay into this. I think you have to be careful of what you do to that membrane that seals the roof. And then when you add something on top of that, does that void the warranty for the roof? If a leak should stop. That's nothing to do with the solar panels, but the roofing company can say, hey, that's not under your warranty, you place something on top of that. So there's little more stuff that goes with it. Belchertown just had one going into a certain area, and there was a lot of actually public uproar not to put it there, because it was a vast meadow. It distracted from the beauty of the meadow and stuff. We do have the land that's over by the well. Ed can talk to this. The land that's over there that's preserved. Could you put panels over there?
Could you put panels on town shed? I mean, that's something that we own already.
You'll have to put a new roof on that shed.
You have to worry about the weight.
Okay. And as far as the school was concerned, that was part of an overall grant. That was another building that was looked at. And all the proposals went to the school. There was brand new boilers involved with that, panels, sun panels. But Dave's pretty much right about that membrane. You would have avoided the warranty on that roof. It's a flat roof for the most part. The gymnasium's a pitched roof. But I believe one of the reasons why they didn't put it on there was because it was going to void the existing warranty on that building. Okay. And as far as looking at other sites, that land that's over by the well is all owned by the water, a lot of it's owned by the water department, and its primary purpose was to protect the watershed, okay? Keep any kind of chemicals off it, because any kind of chemicals, if a broken shield or something like that goes in it, it goes in the ground. I'm not saying they won't allow it, but that was one of their biggest concerns when we had a cell tower that was gonna go over there, that it might drop fuel in the ground and get into the water table. So, you know, you use a state grant to buy all that land for land protection. That protection also has certain things that go along with it, like stewardship and keeping it free of any not organic, but like fuels, fossil fuels, chemicals from penetrating the ground and attacking your watershed.
And we have a number of conservation areas in town. None of those can be used,
I mean, you have to talk to the conservation, but I tell you, I think they're under a lot of the same restrictions.
okay.
You know, I'm not trying to.
So then there really is no other way to make
Well,
revenue then. It's
Raise
just like-
taxes.
We tried that.
We have had solar companies reach out to us. We can float it by the Public Safety Committee, Complex Committee,
there is a
about
committee.
moving forward
There is a committee already established.
about
I don't
moving
know if
forward
it's
with
disbanded or
with the
what.
solar
Yeah, it was a solar
idea,
thing.
and we can look into the issue.
If we've got people coming to us, that means they think there's a place to put them, right?
And we also had hired Pioneer Valley Planning and Planning Commission. They were involved with this grant process. And they went around to all our public buildings and see what we could use and not use. You know, I mean, I even suggested putting panels on just to run the electricity needed for the parks at the pavilion. You know, it's just,
Do they have a place to put a windmill?
well, then these are all things that go through the planning
Barns.
board. You know.
I think you'd have to worry about the FAA and barns.
But solar is a perfect example.
The library over on East Street,
Mhm.
is that roof, would that roof qualify, or?
Well, that
areas
roof
around
is
there?
probably going on 18 years old, and they do not recommend any, even the solar panel companies don't recommend putting it on a roof greater than 10 years old. You know, so you would have to do the roof over before they would put it on it.
property that's.
And I'm not saying it's not a bad idea, I mean, they can start looking into it and sending it
It's
to.
town-owned. When you pull into the library, and there's 26 East Street, which is the multifamily home, and there's a big field behind there.
That's owned by the Parks Department.
It's owned by, so the town owns it.
It's, yes, the town's owned by it, but you have to get authority from the House and Senate to do anything other than recreation on it.
If it's viable, it'll be worth looking into.
Right.
I mean, no, if it's viable, it's a good project, but we don't have home rule on that. It has to go to the House and Senate and pass a special piece of legislation to put it on park property. There's a lot of different hurdles out there.
Don't give up, please.
But in the meantime, I mean, I'm sure, I think you ought to talk to a new principal over there about seeing what the plans were when I think it was Siemens came in and did this study with Pioneer Valley.
They're for the whole town.
And they did it for all our structural buildings, and we were building this, we're hoping to put them on there, it didn't work out.
No, there's a report, they went through and they did an energy audit for the town. I just don't remember what the report ended up showing. It should be in the select board office.
We had a wish list for every building and what was feasible, what was not feasible.
Changing the lights.
What companies would come in and take these projects over. And they only take it over if there's a profit after 20 years.
So
They have to make a profit.
the new principal over there, North School, has a report already?
No, I don't think she has it. I think it went to the superintendent, and it was the Simmons report.
Well, the Simmons was for the whole town.
Right, but the school was part of
The
it.
school's part, I don't know if we have it. We may have a
We
copy.
might have it here too.
I mean, what the solar companies are looking for are the tax credits that are out there.
Yeah.
To make it feasible, so I think we should.
But we don't get tax credits.
No, they get the tax credits.
They get the tax
And we get the electricity at a great rate. You know, I'm involved with a couple of these projects up in Amherst, but you can even put them on a pasture, because now they make them so that the panels are 7 or 8 feet above the ground, and cows can graze under it, so it doesn't take the pasture away. So,
And somebody cuts the grass.
well, the cows got the grass.
Yeah.
I think if we're getting people,
It's not a bad idea, don't give up. I'm just saying this is some of the frustrations we had over the last 10 years.
Well, that's the thing.
They want a big,
No.
they like a big spot of land, like 5 acres minimum. You know, they want to generate so many kilowatts over a period of time. But the magic thing is they want 5 acres disposed, but they want to have that tree line way back, so that 5 acres is getting nothing but pure sun. So you're talking maybe a 300-foot buffer beyond that area all the way around.
can we ask Heather to, have some kind of conversation with the folks that are coming to us
Sure.
saying we're interested?
Sure.
Okay.
I think she's already been doing it.
Yeah,
I like this new Heather, by the way.
Now, the other, there's a piece of land behind us that's been cleared.
Behind your house or behind the school or?
No, 298 College Highway. They went in and logged it, Westfield, O'Connor?
Yep.
Someone just passed away in his thing. Is that land that could be used for solar?
You have to buy it.
You gotta buy it.
Yes, but I'm thinking if you just bought it knowing that you're gonna put
Did
solar.
Charles O'Connor pass away?
No, that's part of the trust too, but
His wife passed away, the one in Florida?
Somebody.
I mean, I don't know how it
passed
could take
away
it.
recently. I'm gonna be talking to the gentleman again in 2 weeks.
Not to scare you, but we don't have the money for purchasing unless we can find a grant.
Charlie? Got a grant?
I was just thinking that we have 600 acres. A number of them, maybe 400, are really restricted as Ed described, but there may be some others that we could examine and see how valuable they would be.
That would be
It's not
nice.
like it's a blanket thing that they all have to be completely protected, because many of them would donate to the town and no grants, state grants were used to improve.
And the other thing too is, there are, we do have a lot of parcels, I don't know how many there were at one time, I think there were like 67 parcels of land that are landlocked throughout the area, and right now they're pretty much covered with forests and stuff like that. But we should go back, and the list was established,
There's one over here on High Street.
Right, but if you could go back and see, you know, what the individual restrictions are on them, we got them for tax title for the most part, and maybe some of those are available, you know.
You
I
just
don't
have
think of
somebody
anything
go
greater
in
than
and
5
clear
acres.
cut it?
What's that?
You need to have somebody go in and clear
You'd have
cut
to
it?
have somebody come up and log it and de-stump it, and, you know, maybe they might do it if it's, you know, a big enough parcel, but we were looking at for ball fields, and most of them, I don't think there was anything bigger than 4.5 to 5 acres, and I'm not trying to scare you, but I just wanted to let you know there are other parcels out there that, you know, if we could get that committee to look at them and be an option.
I mean, I know, you know more, but in order for them to put in a solar field, they've gotta go back to the grid and have a certain amount of power in right there already, otherwise they gotta redo the whole setup, which could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they've gotta be able to feed back into the power that will take the solar. So you can't put it out in the middle of nowhere,
Right.
so you gotta be careful on that. But, yeah, Heather can look into it. I think it's a great idea. Was that your idea that you're bringing up, or was that the second idea?
There was several other ideas, I understand.
Yeah, there are just some, there are Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts in town that are always looking for Eagle projects. They're always willing to help out the community. I know SYAA has been approached to try and help and do stuff in town. There's certain things that we have asked about taking care of, and, you know, you get told, well, you can't do this because it has to be put in the budget, and it has to be accounted for this way, and it has to be accounted for that way. There are other areas that are willing to help out and things so that you don't have to pay a union. I mean, I'd rather have somebody that works at the town shed, the highway department, doing highway stuff, doing, you know, fixing roads, fixing equipment and stuff, than going around picking up trash, picking up cans, cashing cans in, mowing lawns. You know,
That
there's
actually,
other.
the mowing lawns part is how it sort of saved mine. Ed can attest this, but I can attest from being a selectman while Ed was doing it, is Ed was functioning as a DPW, even though we're a highway department, and it actually saves money in the town. So we consolidate all the mowers and all the skill set, to take care of the parks, to take care of the cemetery, to take care of the library. So the benefit of the highway department acting like a DPW actually saves money for the town, because it's centralized and then they have the manpower to do that. So actually, that system is actually better for the town.
Is Randall
No,
doing
I
that?
totally agree with, what's that?
Is Randall now doing that?
I would hope so. He worked with me for 3 years. But as far as picking up litter and trash, nobody wants to pick up litter and trash. But the point is, somebody's got to do it.
Right.
You know, and I've been on several projects with community projects that out of Hampshire Regional will work with us.
Yeah.
And we did many projects on a Saturday or Sunday, picked up litter
Yeah.
on all the streets. They came in, Boy Scouts did, I did several Eagles projects with the Boy Scouts. We've always used them. We use them at the landfill, helping the elderly dump their recyclables.
Yeah.
There's always projects for them. We've never said no to them.
Okay. So is there a way that we can use their help?
You can't use their help to replace a working position. You could be in trouble. You can use their help to do things you normally don't do with your help. Litter, helping elderly. Eagle projects, they put a sidewalk in up to the pavilion one year. I think that was Scott Rice's son, and it was an Eagle project for him. We did a project up the old cemetery with another Eagle Scout. He upgraded that area. We worked with Charlie with several other Eagle Scout projects. They come, we will find projects for them.
Yeah.
You know, and we've been doing that as long as I've been here, and even longer with John Garska.
But it can't be a position that's already.
You just can't. You can't take a job. You can't take a job away from an existing person. you know, and if you're spending money on it, and it's something that went out to bid, you can get in a lot of trouble. Okay.
Is there a way to make the transfer station something that will bring revenue, more revenue in?
Well, like anything else, town governments are not supposed to make a profit. They're supposed to break even, okay? I know the fees have gone up there on everything in the last year. So, you know, you try to match what the costs are, okay? I know we've had great success with that scholarship fund that's up there. And it brings in $7,000-8,000 a year for scholarships. It's time consuming, but, you know, if somebody's running out of things to do, that's an attendant there, they work on those bottles. You know, sometimes other people come in when they get finished the job, there's a place to go to finish your day off, there's stuff like that. But that's up to Randall now.
Okay.
Take care of that. But, you know, we've had a lot of projects up there that we have volunteers for. We love volunteers. Because it makes a difference, because they're doing things that normally we can't get done. And I do appreciate that.
So she's talking revenue enhancing at the transfer station, basically, can we make money? Yeah, I mean, we'd have to raise fees, that's the only place we
We just
can.
raise fees.
Yeah, but that's the only place to permit the fees, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you gotta be careful what you do there. You're supposed to bring in the amount of fees it takes to run the facility, not, you know, make a lot of money out of it. Right there in the statutes.
Okay, so just question.
Like your hands are always tied.
Yeah, what's that?
You need approval, you need some kind of go-ahead from us to go ahead with the process that you presented here, correct?
I just want to say one thing, that municipal finance and regular business finance are like two different animals. And so when Ed Batchelder was on the board, he's definitely from the finance world. He had a hard time with that, because it was just, municipal stuff is just, we have all these different things we have to do versus, you know, regular old business finance. So I can understand your frustration, but I do appreciate your effort. And thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Sorry, I just wanted.
No, that's okay.
Heather, you wanted us to approve your suggestions, correct?
Should we do them first? Okay. So, for budget directive, budgets have departments prepare 2 budgets, 1 level funded, and 2 is FY15 minus 5%. Level funded means they have the same amount the department was funded in FY15 and does not include any additional funds from warrant articles that were transferred in from operating, stabilization, ambulance accounts, etc. If the department was funded at $10,000 last year, the department will be funded at $10,000 this year. FY15 minus 5% means take the total amount of your budget line from FY15 and subtract 5% from it, and that's the total you can spend. For your convenience, we've enclosed a revenue projection sheet and highlighted the FY15 original amount and the 2 budget amounts for FY16. Enclosed are 2 spreadsheets. Please use one for each budget. Do not include capital items. If you have additional documentation, please feel free to submit it as well. And I believe it's a directive to the departments. So 2 salaries. Level fund, same as FY15, non-union wages and salaries for the preliminary budget until we complete CBAs with all the unions. Heather recommends using the standard applied to other communities. If unions receive a raise and non-unions receive a raise, all treated equal. Add the following percentage increases to staff for your department for FY16, so it stays the same. 3 capital items. The department's 5-year capital plan should be updated and submitted by January 8th. Since there were minimal capital purchases in FY15, you will need to reprioritize your request. For your convenience, the latest capital plan with definitions for reference enclosed. Please update and submit the plan as well as any additional requests. And annual town meeting warrant article request number 4. Please also submit article requests electronically so it can upload it into a draft of the warrant. The titles as soon as possible, full text needed by March 31st, 2014.
Okay, does somebody want to put that into a recommendation?
So moved.
I've got an amendment, but I'll second it for a
Okay.
conversation.
Go ahead.
So I got a second. On the total proposed budget analysis, I just want to incorporate what we talked about before. So to use your example, Heather, you've got on the pick and choose side of it, if you will. I always appreciate humor. Down where you have estimated revenue for level funded with a variable of 15,597, and you have balance remaining of 224, I'd like to insert two lines. One line that says the operational stabilization fund, and one line that says the capital stabilization fund. And under the level funded, put in $100,000 in each. So the balance remaining will be $24,477. Yeah, they're preliminary, but these will be preliminary numbers for stabilization too, but it keeps it out in front. Okay? I mean, because we're going to forget about it easily. And so when you go over to the right side, the fiscal 15 minus the 5% with variable, I recommend we put 150,000 on each of them. So that 559 goes down to 259. So that's how I would like to amend the amendment.
Sure, if you want to do that, that's fine.
That sounds good?
Second amendment?
Yeah, a second, so second amendment to the amendment.
All approved with the amendment? Aye.
Aye. Okay, great, thanks.
Heather, just a note to consider next time you talk with your committee. Could you look at areas where we have passed things and added them to the budget and to see if they're still necessary? If there are things that we're budgeting, are they still necessary to have? And I'm talking generally. And, you know, such as, you know, buying pistols or buying hose, stuff that is in the budget this year, but they just got it, and we don't need to have it. I just want to know there's a review going on of stuff that is not necessarily, it's different the following year than it was the predecessor. That we're taking that as a deduction. Everybody understand what I'm saying? Are we passing over superintendent's?
Skip to appointments.
Number 5 on the agenda.
Okay, but I'm talking about building department. Are we gonna do that, Sloan? Okay, we'll take that later. You got an appointment for hazardous waste coordinator?
It says continue to December 1st.
Okay, that we continue to December 1st. North School Committee, Lori Shiver. So you want us to wait until next week to appoint her, or?
No. I'll make a motion absent any objections from the school committee to appoint Laura Schreier to the.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Capital Improvement Committee,
I'll make a motion to appoint Charlie Kinnicky.
do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Personal policy, no changes? And the building department's coming in shortly? Okay. What do you want?
Code red. 6.3.
Okay, I'm sure this is, okay, let's talk about Code Red Service Agreement. Are you good for that?
I do.
Well, come on up here.
I actually got some information for each of you.
Okay, great.
I don't know if you had it or not, you might have had it. Yep. I have one left. I'm going to help out with this in just a little bit, right? Okay. The state EMPG grant, Emergency Management Performance Grant, provided about $4,000. We were able to secure, I guess, a contract with Code Red. This is a community alert system whereby all people can be notified of an emergency.
How would they be notified?
Telephones, cell phone, email.
Different ones.
So, in essence, though, this is a 11-month contract. So it expires, I believe, October, and about October next year. After that point, we have to fund the money. There could be an EMPG grant next year as well. Could be, unknown. But this is something that I feel our community needs, and that we don't have any system at this time to let all people know in our community what's happening.
What is the dollar amount on an annual basis?
It's approaching 4,000. The precise figure was arranged, Heather? Got it.
So this is a computerized database that somebody says, okay, like one of the schools may do?
Well, the school does have something somewhat comparable, but not the same. This will send a message out to homes, cell phones, email, and we can decide who, what part of town, that kind of thing.
No, is this strictly only for emergencies?
That was an issue. We said, could we possibly use it to some degree to call staff meetings? Could we use it to contact town government employees? These kinds of things. And they said it could be arranged in our contract.
Which means more money, but yeah.
Yeah, but they seem to be very, very fair on this.
All one package.
Well, I mean, on items like that, it's probably just as well as you have somebody call these people in anyways and make sure they're coming versus put it out as a service, because it's a much smaller number. But,
Road closures, power outages, you name it. Emergency dispensing site opening. All of these kinds of things. This is very important. It's something that we desperately need, have not had.
So it's gonna be paid for with a grant, you're saying, at least till October?
Yes.
So there's no liability to us, we can see how the
This is
system
a
works
grant.
out?
You can see how it works. If you like it, other communities surrounding have it. I believe Westhampton, Northampton, Easthampton just signed out as well.
You can use it for school closures as well.
no, they have one.
But
They have
they
I'm
one.
not saying that, just, I mean, what it.
Well, I know what you're saying, but the school
But they
department already
have
has one.
School committee.
Trick or treat rescheduling.
The more you add on, the more it's gonna cost.
Well, it has trick or treat rescheduling.
Well, okay.
Up at the university, they have one of these that's been in place for several years. I'm on it, it's great.
Oh, it's
You know,
great.
Wherever you are, you'll get the alert, and even if you're not in town, you know what's going on back.
Very important. For instance, if you're telling people of a shelter opening, bang, it's there. So also, all these things.
So there's no downside to us, it sounds like now, because it's being paid by the grant, gives us 11 months.
So,
But it's a 3-year contract, right?
$11,700 per 3-year renewal term, which is paid in annual installments of $3,900 per year. And then I'm told to read, this is a reverse 911 program that the town will be able to use for all of its departments. Fire chief and highway superintendent were able to apply and be awarded the grant to cover the first year of the program. The contract is for 3 years. After the first year, when grant funds have expired, there's a provision included in the contract that allows the town to walk away if we're unable to obtain the funding. Working with local utilities to obtain support for the low cost of annual service. Code Red program will operate similar to that of the system used in the schools. System will allow residents to sign up for messages to be received on email, text, and phone that are sent by department heads alerting of road closures, power outages, missing persons, all the way to election days tomorrow. Residents can sign up for the level of messages that they wish to receive, such as emergency only, all messages, etc.
Fire and the police are on board.
Have you talked, you talked to the police chief?
Oh, yes.
Okay, because this ideally would probably be out of the dispatch center, right?
It doesn't have to be.
But you could use it for town meetings and elections too.
We could, theoretically, yeah.
Well, the only reason I say that, it's reverse 911.
It basically does everything.
Okay.
Everything we can think of. This is a very important tool that our community does not have.
So where do we think it would be out of this? Dispatch is the only 24.
We can do it here.
It's web-based.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
I can
okay,
do
good.
it.
Okay.
You have to have passwords, though.
But it sounds like if we got staff at dispatch 24/7, wouldn't that be a better place for it?
Well, I mean, there's no hardware, there's no equipment.
No, but I mean, if we say, well, Heather does it 24/7, she's at home, she's
Oh,
saying.
no, dispatch can do it.
Okay, so multiple people can.
Anyone who needs to have access to it can have access to it.
Yeah.
That's fine, then, yeah. I didn't want to isolate it with 1 or 2 people that were at
I
home.
just want to make sure there's a control and what the scenario is to be used for, and it's established that way. And there's a command, there's a person in charge. I'm in favor of it.
With the,
Tell people when the elections are, I think that'd be great, or the town meeting, that'd be great.
or flu clinics going on,
No.
something like that.
The available grants with, yeah, they've been out for the last 4 years. How's their revenue stream been? This is all federal money coming to the state.
I'm anticipating it'll continue
It's not a lot, I remember it was $2,000 and $3,000.
Yeah, a little under 4,000, yeah. Okay.
All right.
I mean, I'm making the motion that.
I still think there's a couple thousand over in the highway department that's still, from before I left, was still there. Dr. Randall.
You want a motion that we accept this 3-year?
Yes.
contract? So I'll make the motion to accept 3-year contract.
Second.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
If you're on board, yeah.
Tom, come on up. Still warm.
I can do it.
Okay.
Everywhere says license.
How's it going so far, Tom?
It's very good.
Is it? Are they treating you well?
Yep.
Good.
You like being next to me, tell me what to do. huh?
You want to go to 4 of 6, is there 2 more pages we're missing?
Go ahead.
Well, it's flipped over, sorry.
We can talk about review, how you want to review the, and change the fees.
Sure, you want to start with the building side?
Yeah, let's start with the building side.
Okay. Bob,
I think I have a sheet there too.
compared to Hatfield, Granby, and Deerfield, thinking that would be the best as far as, there's other towns, cities, I should say.
What they're like
towns that are
sizes.
Size-wise, but a lot of them belong to the cooperative, which is tough to, compare to, these are, where there's just a single commissioner and, area-wise and population-wise, it was close. And one thing to notice, there's actually, every city in town does it different as far as how they charge, whether by the square foot, by the 1,000. And I tried to keep it the same as it's been, since the last time there's been an increase. People said they were, contractors as well as you homeowners were comfortable with, the schedule that they've been using. And that goes as, same with the plumbing, gas and electrical as well.
So when you look at per 1,000, or like say the roof, is that per 1,000 for cost, or is that per 1,000 square feet, or is it per 1,000?
It's a minimum $40, and then it's $10 per thousand on the roof.
What do you mean, how's that, $1,000?
Yeah, your roof was, $3,000 would be $70.
Oh, okay.
So not per 1,000 square feet. That's what we're getting at there, right?
Got it.
Right, it's per thousand, the dollar amount. I see it.
I can ask you questions, because I read these over earlier. It looks like it raises projected $16,000, right?
Yeah, in comparison to what was pulled out for permits this year.
Okay. So, from my point of view, on some of these, single family going from 100 to 120, multi 1 to 120. Those to me, you could easily increase even more.
Yes, there is some, especially when you compare it to Hatfield. Hatfield is very on the high side.
$150 for a single family dwelling permit seems to be pretty good. That's electrical on that one.
I just randomly picked one new development, one 3-season room went from 120 to 190 at this rate, which would be an increase of 70.
Yeah. But that requires how many visits by you?
That would be 3, at least 3.
Same as the building.
Yes, yeah, and well, it depends, like today I've did 2 site visits, so, that's, additional, for the people that, customer that has a question or some ideas on how to do the permit. A single family home, I just picked one and, the estimated cost was $190,000, and the increase was $135.47. And then I just
The cost,
scope would double.
the new building, the new home cost $190,000, that's your example?
That's what they're asking for us.
Do we have any homes that cost $190,000 in town? I mean, it seems like our homes are,
Right, well, that's their estimate, that's why I chose, it's simpler for the office to do, in theory, to do for 1,000 like Granby and Deerfield. The thing we run into is when they come in with their proposal is gonna cost them, $120,000 to build a $200,000 home. And we have to request itemized, and it kind of, the square footage, which has been used for years, it's cut and dry. It's what you're building as opposed to learning. Easthampton, as an example, does per 1,000, and it looks a lot simpler than the fee schedule, but you have to deal with people coming in and underestimating or.
oh yeah, okay. So on the square footage, do you do, if it's a two-story, you do the first and second levels, you don't do the basement probably, right?
Basement would be a second fee, which was going from 50 to 35 cents a square foot.
Okay.
Be living space, basement, and then garage.
Okay, so you capture everything.
Some towns and cities will get into a crawl space, they cut the price in half, and they really get, complex with it, but.
Is there an area here for something that's unforeseen? In other words, something that's unusual that's being built, covered here with it?
I believe everything should be covered. The solar is separate now, and roof siding, it fall under remodel or addition, if it wasn't, something residential that wasn't.
I mean, something comes to mind like maybe a fallout shelter or something that's not norm. How would you catch that? I'm not saying they're building it today, but I'm just saying.
Right.
It's something that's not always spelled out, but it's a new thing, it's a unique thing. I'm just wondering if we should have something for, something that's unforeseen, having a dollar cost
That's a good
equal,
idea, yeah.
But you have there's nothing here for like a shed or a barn.
There's some on the back.
Is there room for the shed or the barn?
Sheds, yes.
Shed, yeah.
Barns would be a building, right?
Yeah.
Basically?
Correct.
I know, maybe it's not necessary, but I think that if something arises, somebody's building a tunnel from the garage to the house, you don't know.
No,
Today you don't know.
That's a
You're
basement.
not covered.
That's a basement.
They also wouldn't tell you about that, so.
Yeah, I know.
Well, one example today, and I've asked 3 other commissioners what if a fee is required or not. There's a tower in town that they want to remove a couple of antennas, and is there a fee? And I have trouble finding out whether, we.
Well, if they put it up, they should be able to put it
Wasn't
up.
a
Correct, but you
demolition.
have a demo fee,
There's a demo.
so it's kind of, and anyway, hopefully by tomorrow I'll have an answer, even if I have to call.
I would be comfortable with this as long as you find something to cover that unknown area.
Okay.
Something, I'm sure somebody has something, and, it doesn't have to be, out of the norm, but something that you can compare it to.
Okay, that sounds good.
Can you just tell us what was added that wasn't necessarily there before,
The
if
solar-
anything?
Solar wasn't on here before, otherwise, square footage and all, like I said, we kept everything the same, form that was using for years here. Pools over here. Yeah, I believe everything,
How about demolition pools?
demolition is based on,
Same as,
it would be for, principal building as opposed to accessory building, but, would be the difference in
Okay.
costs.
that's fine.
Does it have to go to town meeting to be approved?
No. A question, and it follows up on what Dave was saying, because I think it is a little confusing, where it has the price per 1,000. Can we specify it's per $1,000 of value or $1,000 of something? Because you can't tell it's dollars based on what the estimate or the actual, if you don't mind doing that.
Per $1,000 of value, I think is an easy way to do it.
Well, again?
Per $1,000 of value.
Yeah, whose value though? Is it the inspectors or is it?
I think it's a lot clearer on the actual fee schedule. This was just done as a comparison
I think
chart.
it's the cost of the building materials. You're
yeah.
gonna spend $1,000, you're gonna spend $5,000 on
shingles on a roof or some underlayment, then that's how the fees based.
The fee goes by the cost of the project, not the value.
Yeah, so as long as people know and it's clear, so they don't come into them and say, hey, give you a hard time. I like to think, guys, I think the idea is great.
Heather, do we have to, have a vote on this?
Make a motion to approve.
Well, I just, hold on a minute.
It'll effective January 1st.
Okay, in the meantime, we can post these out there so people can see the new rates. Okay, fine.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I just want to bring up, having had to get a building permit from Tom recently, he's already taken the paperwork and addressed a lot of the issues we had, and made it a lot better to do the job, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Eventually, we hope to have every separate one with a list of what, believe it or not, after the second or third date, it's almost like people had found out I had office hours, and it's actually gotten very busy, so.
Very good.
First couple of
That's a
days,
good
I
thing.
don't think they were used to it.
Yeah.
Now, will that go as well for the plumbing, electrical, that they have?
We haven't looked at it, we'll look at the electrical now. See if we have a question.
I've already looked at them, but when you're ready, let me know.
We're not changing, are we changing the way we're paying the inspectors?
Well, the one thing that was raised earlier was that one of them gets 80% and one gets a flat fee. I think we should just go with the flat fee of $40 and not a percentage.
For electrical and plumbing?
Right, just make it nice and easy. One gets a percentage, like 80%. I think they both should just get $40 for the.
No, I think we should talk.
I think they both get 80%, it just works out to be $40.
Okay,
That's what I believe.
okay.
So the question is the 80% going to
Have you
carry
talked to the
over?
inspectors about changing that to straight per visit fee?
Yes, I was gonna present it for them that it would stay in 80%, so they would get a little bit of an increase, and of course the town would as well.
Well,
That's something.
I understand what you're saying is, but we're supplying an office and computer a lot, and liability insurance for 20%, I think it's costing us money.
Okay.
That's my comment. I don't know what Heather's office has found out. Do we have enough to cover our expenses with holding back 20%? Okay, tell Kevin.
Yes or no?
Well, let me bring something up here, because I think Kevin hit on that. So we're going up, for instance, single-family dwelling, we're going up $20, right? So if the inspector gets 80% of that, we're only getting $4 out of it
Right.
for the town. Is that what you're getting?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, because,
I don't think we're getting enough to cover our costs.
no, I mean, we're giving the inspector a big increase. And I'm not saying that's bad, but we're trying to look for revenue for us.
Well, at least cover our costs.
Yeah. So maybe the idea they brought up about going with a flat fee, I'd like to bring them both in here and talk to them about it.
I prefer to be able to talk to them,
Yeah.
So,
or even have Heather talk to them.
so
If
for,
we need to get involved, then we can get involved.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
for the example of the building, it's currently $80, and that's to cover the cost of 2 inspections. He gets, so it's $40 per inspection. It's for electrical. Are we talking about electrical? Oh, okay. So for electrical, so when it goes up to 100, that's 2 inspections. That's $50 an inspection. He's getting $80. The town's getting 20. So it's $40 per inspection. So he takes 40, the town takes 10. If it's the new residential, that's 2 inspections, I believe. So he would get 80, the town would get the 20 in that case.
I'm not questioning how much they get. What I'm questioning is, we're not getting anything to cover our costs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the idea that.
We're not paying for the heat to keep these guys warm when they're working on it, the printing of the paper, their office staff, all this stuff, we're not getting enough money to cover. So if you and Heather can talk to these 2 guys and see where we come up with a reasonable approach that's satisfactory to them, and with the understanding that we have to take a little more money in on our side to cover the cost of running those 2 offices.
So are we suggesting that they go to a flat $40 fee, and that's what they can discuss?
Well, I leave it open enough for her and Heather and the building inspector to work that out, but with the understanding that we're not covering our costs with those
Should be a
inspectors.
flat fee.
What's that?
Should be a flat fee. The role of increasing the fees
is to increase revenue for the town, not to increase revenue for the inspectors. So if we're trying to get out of this budgetary hole, we need to really sort of keep things, I mean, they should still get what they've been getting, which is $40. Not to ask them to take any less.
Correct.
What we're asking is to bring in more income, revenues through fees for the town. So it sort of defeats the purpose to leave it at 80%. That was my own opinion.
Well, I mean, the other thing too is, Rich, Electric, when he was here, he brought up to me, there are certain large commercial buildings where, an 80% fee is a couple $1,000. Okay? And we're not getting, you know, we're only getting 20% of that. And it seems like we need to look at this, that we are covering our cost, and we need to cover our cost, because we're not here to subsidize these costs when we've got a fee structure to cover them. So
It is covering costs, but I'd like to make a little more.
I agree with you, but right now I think we're losing money on covering the cost. So
I'll talk with them because I.
talk with them, and then I want you to talk to Heather, keep her in the loop. You can see her any day of the week, you can't see us all the time, so I would prefer to work it out, and then we would approve the final solution.
Yeah, and if they want to talk to us, because like I said, we want to make
Yeah.
sure that they're involved with it.
But I just wanted to have a good give and take meeting and see what it is. Okay. Other than that, the building fees are fine. The electrical fees, fine with me. I don't know what the other board members feel. Electrical and gas.
That's fine with me.
Since it's not going into effect until January 1, I think we'll settle the issue.
We'll do the vote then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's only 19 new home building permits? There's only 19 homes? Is that up or down from last year, do you know?
I believe it's more than that, right? Is this?
Last year,
I'll go by
26.
this.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
19 on here.
This is everything from 2014, so.
So it's 19 single
19.
family.
As of this,
Is that higher or lower than last year? Just sort of predict.
I don't want to just throw a
Good
figure
growth.
out. I believe it's up from the year before.
Okay.
let me ask you this is only up until today?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep, up to
so
today.
we got 7 more months to
All
go.
the new homes started in June.
This is calendar year though.
I know, but we got another growing season come May.
Yeah, it was not in May. I'm just thinking of, is this, if this is typical for cycle, then it looks like all the building starts start in June. That's when they pull the permits. So I'm just trying to see what new growth might be for the town to put into the budgetary cycle.
Any other questions, Tom?
No, I think that'll do it. Oh, yeah, we got, name tags for myself.
So you can identify them?
Who made the tags?
I'm sorry. Oh, Greenfield did it for us.
Are you serious? That's nice.
Yep.
Ask them if they want to do another 200.
I said that was it, just the two of us.
That's nice.
It's nice to go out on the site, especially they're not familiar with.
Well, even all the highway guys, everyone else in town should have a badge.
Right.
I've always said that, so.
Yeah. But, I also, just let you know, I did, took the second exam last Thursday and passed.
Congratulations.
Under my belt. Thank you.
Congratulations. You got how many more to go? 1, 2? One, great. So you're getting there.
So,
You don't want to pay that guy any more than you have to.
that's right.
Do you need anything else, Tom?
No, I think that'll do it.
Everything been good?
Yes. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep, have a good night.
Okay, you got, is there a payroll warrant tonight?
No, I don't have anything. Are you going there?
All right, there's two warrants we need to take a vote on. One is warrant 15-20 in the amount of $1,280,912.52. We just need to take a vote on. So is there a motion?
That's your motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move to approve warrant 15-20A in the amount of $2,946.84. These are already been signed. Just didn't vote on them. I just need a second.
You have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And then there's tonight's payroll warrant, which is warrant 15, W15-21 in the amount of $232,653.26. That's my motion.
Do I have a second?
Second, I have a question.
Okay.
Are we getting all the time slips signed? With nobody, miss?
Okay.
What you're saying, but
She hasn't verified that.
I think we should clarify it.
Well, we still have to pay it, so.
Right, but I think we should keep track of signatures
Okay.
like we
If there's
Please
no,
double check.
if we don't have all the signatures, send a notice to people that haven't sent them, if there are any, to tell them and sign it. Or they can come in front of us next meeting and tell us why.
So I have a motion, did you get a second?
Second it.
So Ed, do you want to call the vote?
For which one?
The warrant I just read.
Okay,
Just say those in favor?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's it.
Yours is
No,
not
we
signed.
got approval of minutes here.
November 14th.
Fourth and the 14th. I've got them both here, if we approve them all. Anybody want to see them?
We can take a minute and read them.
I've read them.
And then we'll
Okay, so we just got word that school committee approved Lorna's appointment from earlier.
Okay.
Dave, you wanna look at the minutes?
What is this discussion? Colleague expressed concern about age? About age of the employee working at the landfill.
Right, one and all of us. He was over 18 on the equipment.
The other direction. I was wondering, I don't remember that.
Is the Hampshire budget really only 56%? I thought it was more.
I think it's more.
57, last I heard. That's our student population, so that's our percentage of.
No, but I mean, of our budget, I thought it was more than 56% of our budget, town budget, annual budget.
Oh, all right.
Well, that's just Hampshire Ordinance, that's not Norris. Yeah. Yeah. Norris has a, yeah. Norris has another 4 point something million.
I'll entertain a motion for,
So moved.
I need to sign it.
November 4th.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. For, November 12th.
11th.
12.
So moved.
The second. All those in favor? These are a couple of announcements. Select Board's meeting will meet December 2nd, 16th, and 30th of December at 6:30. There'll be an upcoming hearing for a special hearing for a car request on December 2nd. Shade tree hearing will be continued to December 2nd.
Charlie, that shade tree, which, is that the new house that was just refurb right at the corner at the bridge?
It's not a new house.
No, but I mean, it's an old house that was rehabbed.
Yeah,
There, I thought they already took a bunch of the trees down.
they did. They had permission to do that from the commission and you.
Why were you involved with that? It's not like a scenic road. Excuse me?
Riverfront.
Oh, riverfront, because I know there were some dead trees on my corner of my house there on Manhan. They were falling into the road, so I thought I did the town a favor to take them down.
Yeah,
Unknown to me, I was supposed to ask you guys for permission, but they were dead.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So that's, this,
It means, it probably means the governing.
yeah, the big old pines they took down.
Yeah, and they want you to do it at a given time of the year.
Is this the time to do it?
Yes,
Okay, so it's, they've done it appropriately.
that's right.
Okay.
Before we go into executive session, is anybody here you want to talk? Charlie? Anybody? At this time, we're going to go into executive session. Mass General Law C-38, Section 21, Number 2, three-way negotiation. And then after that, we're going to go into executive session, Mass General Law C-30A, S-21, Number 2, collective bargaining agreement.
Roll call vote. McDougal, aye.
Collie, aye.
The first